My perspective is, at that very young age, you should experiment and have different experiences.
Not with all things.
Not with all things. Academically, Academically
thank
in
you.
sports.
Let's clarify.
Yeah.
We have some young people watching this. Well, welcome, Rafael. And welcome to the audience. This is Inside Copy and Art, the podcast. And I have the pleasure of being joined today by Rafael Peralta. He is a director of digital IT, pharma, commercial field force operations for Bayer Pharmaceuticals. Disclaimer is, you're not my client, but you are my friend. And there's a lot of interesting things to unpack with you in terms of your career, what you're doing, what you've done, who you are as a human. And I just knew that our desired outcome of always adding value to the audience, by you joining me today, we're going to do just that. So thank you so much.
It's a pleasure for me to be here with you, Elena. Thank you for the opportunity.
Oh, it's a pleasure. We're going to have fun. Are you ready?
I'm always ready.
I know you're always ready. All right. So we usually take some time and think about a couple of different areas for our guests, things that we feel like are special and important about every person, because we all have our story. And one of the most interesting parts for me is your career, which is kind of long and it is impressive in so many ways. I'm a little partial to pharma. So, of course, I'm definitely into where you're at and what you've been doing. But why don't you tell me a little bit about your career, what got you to Bayer in this role, and kind of what led up to what you're doing now?
Great. Thanks again. Well, I've been with Bayer Pharmaceuticals for 18 years, soon to be 19 this coming June. I started my career off as a field sales consultant in the women's healthcare division. So I promoted and sold our women's healthcare portfolio to OBGYNs, internists, and hospital folks as well.
So you were a rep?
I was a rep for 8 years.
Wow.
For 8 years.
Wow. Okay.
Yeah. So that was an exciting role. Prior to that, I came from consumer sales, consumer product sales.
Okay.
So it was a paradigm shift for me to join more of a, still in sales, but more in the healthcare focus. Obviously, your call panel changes, your customer changed, and also the value that you communicate to your customers changed as well. So it was an opportunity for me to shift more into a healthcare focused career. Something I really wanted to do for a very, very long time. I have other family members that are in the healthcare field, so I was always kind of pushed to the field. I saw the opportunity that came up with Bayer, and I went for it.
So tell me, because you have quite a few degrees, which I didn't get into when I introed you, but why don't you tell us about some of your schooling, some of what got you even kind of before, because you have a really long history with Bayer too, which I want to get into, but tell me a little bit about your schooling and what prepped you for 18 years with Bayer.
So I'm a proud son of the Dominican immigrants, so first generation here in New York City.
Yes.
Graduate of Cardinal Hayes High School in the Bronx. Go Bronx. From Cardinal Hayes High School, I attended Fordham University, where I got my undergraduate degree in marketing. And a couple of years later, while being a working adult, I got my master's degree from Iona University in New Rochelle.
Oh, love Iona. They are a client.
Gotta get that plug in.
I mean, yes.
So yeah, with the focus on marketing management.
Okay.
And 20 years later, believe it or not, I got the urge to go back to school. It was more a strategic decision for me. I knew, being in the healthcare industry, I know there was a lot of changes going on, a lot of paradigm shifts in the entire industry. I've been out of the field and out of a customer-facing role for many, many years at that point. So I wanted to kind of re-engage and re-educate myself on the current, status of healthcare, the challenges, the tools, the value propositions that were being communicated out to our customers. So I began my master's in public health at New York Medical College. with a focus on policy and management. And that helped me, get me up to speed after many weekends and long nights of studying and
Yes.
going to class. But it was good to immerse myself into the challenges of the healthcare industry, which are many, and the changes since I've been out with my customers. It's one thing to see it on TV or to like hear about it, but once you start really digging deep into some of the managed care strategies and tactics and challenges, really get to understand what the reality of the challenges and what we need to do, further understand what we need to do to help support those solutions.
Absolutely. There were so many synergies when we met. Other than the rapport, you're like a great guy. Felt like you were my friend. I was like, wait, I didn't go to Cardinal Hills. I think that's an all-boys school.
Yes.
But maybe we crossed paths somewhere. One of the things that was interesting was when, because your role today doesn't say too much about that policy, managed care, understanding that side of the business. And as you know, that's a strong side for like copy and art. It's what I've done for 20 years, and it's what we do quite a bit for our clients. So I want to like touch on, and maybe this is a great time to talk about, so you joined Bayer and you're there 18 years. Talk to us a little bit about what 18 years at one company looks like, because that's pretty rare today.
I know, I'm a dinosaur.
No, you're not a dinosaur. You started when you were 3. It's cool. You were a genius.
Well, what I mean to say by that is and even years ago, I saw the transition in the employment marketplace where folks did not spend more than 2 to 5 years at any one institution or organization, right? They would move on either to get more money or to acquire different skill sets or different experiences, right? So that's kind of what paradigm shift from 25 years ago.
Yes.
Right. For me, it was just an evolution of kind of finding the right opportunities, working with the right people, and having the right challenges to take on at Bayer. So those 3 things combined have led me to extend my career there.
Yeah, I mean, so, and as a disclaimer, it's like Bayer is our client, but not you directly.
Correct.
We also share, like, we can see ourselves in that company as well. Having worked with many pharma organizations over my career, they're not all the same. And some really do stand out. And we've had, it's been interesting, but we've had a great run with Bayer so far. Tell me some of the roles you've done, some of the, so you said you started as a rep.
Correct.
And I mean, what got you to digital IT?
Started as a rep, did the job for 8 years, did it very well, won numerous sales awards and leadership awards and during my tenure as a rep. And because of that, I got the opportunity to work on a number of projects with home office colleagues from marketing, from commercial operations, and from sales leadership. That then led to an opportunity for an open position with the commercial operations or field operations department way back when. It gave me the opportunity to work with and learn how to work inside the office environment, which for someone in the field for 8 years is a major challenge, a major shift. So educated me on that in the corporate world and how things work internally, which I was eager to learn. Gave me a new challenge, and also gave me the opportunity to still, in that new role that I joined, still support the field. So I had the field experience, knew what the challenges were for the field sales consultants.
Who better,
right?
Who better, right? I agree.
You don't tell me. I came here to kind of educate you guys on what the challenges are.
Yes.
And that also, because I was trusted by the field, they would always come to me and say, hey, this is the real challenge, right? Sometimes in sales meetings or in front of sales leadership, not everything comes out transparently.
Sure. Yeah.
With transparency. So I always had they knew they had a trusting ear with me, and they were able to communicate the challenges and some of the concepts and ideas that maybe they wouldn't share,
right, because you
to
were
others.
one of them.
Right.
As an agency, when I was kind of growing up in pharma ad agency, and even today, to the extent that we can ever, we ride along. we want to ride along.
That's awesome.
Because how do we know?
That's awesome.
And it's harder in managed care, and it's harder with some of these organizational customers. But the truth is, how do you know how to write for any member of a sales organization if you're not aware of the sales call? Right. And no matter what it is, if you call it a meeting, even if you're trying to add value, if you're more of a strategic customer, it doesn't matter. It's a sales call, right? You're trying to influence someone. How do we write effectively and create effectively if we don't know what that engagement looks like?
Trying to change behaviors, and you need to know how to communicate the ideas to get that across clearly and to make that person have a reason to change.
Right. And what you'll find is, sales, I mean, some of the more experienced ones, they're just going to use what works for them. So you might, an agency or a marketer might spend a ton of money, let's say on a value prop, where 5 slides get used. And, everybody would love, especially MLR, would love to believe every slide is getting used and all those speaker notes are being used. But the truth is, when you're in the field, maybe that organizational customer isn't giving you an hour. Maybe you're lucky if you get 15 minutes, and so they're using 2 slides and the summary. So how do you create, then materials that are more valuable to them?
Right. And with the evolution of the sales call, reps are getting less and less time, right? How do you still communicate value concisely and to help bring your messaging forth and help that provider make a educated decision on whether or not to offer your product to that patient?
Right. So one of the cool things and one of the kind of synergies that you and I have outside of, and we're going to touch on DEI kind of separately, so I don't want to kind of tee it up, but I'm kind of teeing it up. But I don't want to go there right this second. But one of the things I will say is that in advertising, it's very similar. When I look around pharma, I think there's definitely an enhanced kind of talk about DEI and seeing people who are historically underrepresented in leadership roles. But what's cool is that you've been there for 18 years and you have you've done some pretty great things around DEI at Bayer. Do you want to go there?
Sure. I've been involved with I&D initiatives at Bayer for over 10 years. When I first entered the home office world, that was one of the things that I promised myself that I would do when given the opportunity. Coming from the field where you're alone all day and maybe interact with your field manager twice a month for a couple of days and maybe see your colleagues maybe for lunch once or twice a week, but that you're primarily on your own. And in many of these environments, you may not see a lot of people like you with your background and your level of diversity. So I always took it upon myself and promised myself that whenever I got the opportunity to be in a position where I could contribute to inclusion and diversity and equity and access, I would do my best to do so, to educate myself and to contribute. Yes,
that's one of our, I think, biggest commonalities. I think it's very, over 20 years doing pharma advertising, I was not really shocked. I won't say I'm shocked, but I was always somewhat disappointed by the percentages of underrepresented people in pharma, and it was synergistic in advertising as well. I think both fields are getting better. But let's talk about it. What do you think? How do you think it's going now? You don't have to speak to, directly about what Bayer's doing, but industry-wide, how do you feel DEI is going? Do you feel like, what are your thoughts about where we are today?
I think to your point, it's gotten a lot better. I think that some companies have taken the initiative and being proactive to reach out and develop inclusion and diversity, equity and access programming and programs for their employees. They've seen the value. They've seen that these programs bring to their organization. Folks today value diversity. They value diversity of experiences, diversity of thought, cultural diversity as well, gender diversity. We all bring new things to the table, right? And business issues, business problems are getting more and more complex. Why not have a diverse pool of thoughts and ideas at the table when you're tackling a problem, right? That'll hopefully you'll get to the answer quicker and be a lot more effective. From a healthcare perspective, industry perspective, companies have also realized that, African Americans and other Hispanics and other minorities now comprise a large part of that patient population, right? So these are the folks they're trying to reach, right? Now to educate them on disease state awareness, on their products, obviously, and to increase awareness of other health issues and how they can get treatment. That's also, I think, prompted the development of more inclusive programming and education. And I see it in the commercials as well, right? See a lot more diverse pool of patients being depicted in commercials across the board. So I'm seeing it all over the place. And again, I think it's just an effort to have more diverse thoughts and to at the table to tackle issues and problems internally, and also to reach these populations that have been, segregated and segmented for so long.
Right. When I started my career, we would create these campaigns in pharma, and marketers would historically say the same thing when we were dealing with like the creative or the photography. They would say, make sure they're ethnically ambiguous. That was a term that would be on a creative brief. Ethnically ambiguous.
Meaning you couldn't tell.
Maybe she's black, maybe she's Latin, maybe she's white, maybe she's... And, so we had to find models that could be anything, which is maybe one of the strongest examples of a one size fits all. It's like, I'm going to talk to no one,
right,
by trying to speak to everyone. So, I can appreciate that from a marketing and advertising perspective. Clients are getting better there. For instance, from a personal perspective, we'll have pharma companies, large organizations that have their AORs, right? And most of you know, but that's an agency of record. So that's the agency that takes the majority, if not all, of their business. And so they'll have an agency of record, but they're usually very large agencies. And let's say they'll have a cultural campaign. They'll try to push it through their AOR because that's their AOR and they're supposed to get all the business. And they'll fall flat because the agency itself isn't representative. So basically it might be some textbook, it might be some keywords, but it's usually a lot of generalization used. And so of course the campaign falls flat. And the good news about digital is we know how things go, right? This is not put something in the paper and let's see if it sticks, or maybe it does, maybe it doesn't. Digital, you have analytics. So you can see if a campaign falls flat or not.
It's data-driven.
It's data-driven. So today, that doesn't work. And what we're getting at Copy and Art is more calls from AORs, like the agencies themselves are going, hey, we have this book of business, it's a cultural campaign. We can't we could, but we don't want to do that to our client. Do you guys want to step in and help with that campaign, which is relatively new? This is the past couple of years this is happening, which shows agencies are getting better about recognizing that maybe they're not the best fit, that team isn't the best fit. And then pharma in general, they'll call us for their multicultural campaigns, even if they have an AOR that's handling the brand, because they know that it's not the same message, right, or the same art. And when you try to push the same to everyone, you're probably not going to get the best result. Right.
And just to piggyback on the idea of data-driven decisions, right? Marketing decisions, digital marketing decisions are being made from the data that's being collected. So there's no guessing involved, right? They know the demographic they're trying to reach, and they know why they're trying to reach, right? Because they're X percentage of our population, and it's maybe 40% of the patients that we're trying to reach. So it's an educated strategy,
right?
That's being executed.
And there's still shortfalls. So I have a couple of pet peeves in this area, and I I mean, Puerto Ricans used to say, I don't have any hair on my tongue. Is that a Dominican expression too?
Kind of, sort of.
Yeah. It just means I'm going to say it, as I think it. But, one of the things that I've seen as a challenge and just an opportunity for the industry to grow is they're placing these people sometimes in a position of this chief diversity officer role. They'll give it to a person of color, but things don't change. They just push the person of color in front of everything and act as if that corrects or is the answer to every area that actually needs to be looked at. So that is part of it. And sometimes there's also just this one-sided approach. So I'll give you an example. We had this company call us and they had to target Latinas for, I won't say because there's not too many players in, if you know, like in the space, but we'll say it was a condition that they wanted to target Latinas and they called us. And so we redid their whole campaign because what they want us to do is change a couple of words and get a couple of stats. And I'm like, so that's not the way this works. So I said, so if you want to find the budget for us to redo the campaign, then we'll do that. So they went back, came back, said, sure. Campaign, super successful. They knew exactly what they were aiming to do. We got her done. We got a call the next year. Can you take this campaign and can you tweak it for Black and Creole women? Go. And I'm like, stop. Get on the phone. That's not the way this works. Now, we have Black and Creole women here.
It's not a cookie cutter approach.
Right. So it's like you're kind of, you're evolved, like you're taking some steps forward, but not always grasping the entire picture. So the good news is, I mean, this agency is very diverse, as you know. So I'm like, I can give it to writers who can actually execute with excellence, but you should most certainly take this through market research with your target demo, and you should check us on this, and you shouldn't take any one person's. And, so these quick fix approaches still have these kind of issues. What do you see in terms of so we've made these good strides. We don't want to seem negative about this because it's going in the right direction.
Right.
But what do you see as some of the challenges that still remain, that still kind of keep you passionate about this?
Well, let me say this. I think that in any environment, we need to choose our battles, right? Choose your battles wisely. And I think that's kind of where we're at from an I&D perspective. You mentioned having a chief diversity officer at the helm that's ethnically diverse. I think they have to make decisions that are strategic, right? They can't change the world in a day.
Yeah, that's true.
Right? They would like to,
yes,
but they have to be very tactical. Get the right people on board, get the right type of support from a leadership team perspective, get support internally from others,
right,
employees, leaders as well that want to join the effort. So it's a process. It definitely does not happen overnight. I haven't seen it ever happen overnight.
Yeah.
I'm in 12 years and I'm still seeing the evolution, right? So I think choose your battles, have the right resources, have the right colleagues with you, and take firm steps forward.
Right.
Some of the challenges still exist, where the cookie cutter approach is still kind of the first instinct. But I think taking the time having folks take a step back and educating them on the why.
Yes.
Right. And as we always say, communicate the value of doing that. I think we'll make great strides towards, changing that.
Sure. And, some of it seems, coming from me, a little overly critical. I think it was a step forward that, they called us. It was a step forward that
Absolutely.
They trusted us. And when we made the recommendation, for the record, just come full story on that, they went with it. So there were all of these, those are all of the steps forward, which I think is probably the most important part of the story, right? Because we're not going to unwind many, many years of one type of behavior because there's some intense focus. So that makes perfect sense. Now, speaking of which, you can take this in terms of diversity and some of your kind of passions that way, or just take it in general. Tell me a little bit about someone who's been influential in your career, because we have a couple of agendas here. We certainly love young folks. We love people who don't even know advertising is an option or pharma marketing is. And on the 26th, which is actually National Mentor Day, I don't know if you know this, I've invited some of my mentors to be on the podcast to talk about like how they changed my life. And I think it's really important. I had these people, I think we're supposed to air it that day and film it a couple days before, but my mentors are all like, oh, because they didn't have any intention of having it be known that they helped me so much,
right.
But they did, and I'll never forget it. And so the people I cross at Copy and Art, to the extent that they're willing to have a mentor, I open myself up to that. Tell me a little bit about someone who is important to you in your career and someone you can thank for kind of where you are today.
Well, I can mention many people. I don't think many people of color can sit in a leadership position and not have a good story about mentorship to speak to. So I can mention many people in my career. I want to highlight one person that was my first manager when I came in-house from the field. He was Hispanic as well, Cuban American.
Awesome.
Gave me the opportunity to come in, was very, very demanding to the extreme where, I would have to go home and work after being in the office for 8 hours.
We don't know anything about that.
And at first it was hard for me to comprehend the why do we work so much, and why kind of the overemphasis on analysis and understanding every single step of the process.
And that work ethic.
Yeah, and that work ethic, and that, if we're not ready, we're not going in that room approach. But, with time and after, maybe close to a year of working with him, I came to understand that, he was just trying to make me better.
Right.
And the best way to learn is to learn as you go, in the moment, to do. Right. And if many people can show you many ways of doing things, right? But very few people can show you the right way. And if you have someone that's showing you the right way to do it, it takes the time to do it. Not many people do, right? They don't care, or they don't have the time, or
they're thinking about themselves and their career mostly. That's what I found.
Right, absolutely. You should appreciate that and really take that opportunity to learn, and not look at it as a negative, but look at it as, I'm sure this person's investing in me, giving me challenges. Maybe they're trying to see how I handle things, so they can coach me through it, give me feedback. And at the end of the day, listen, I came out of working with him a better person, a better employee, and a better stakeholder for my internal colleagues.
No, I believe it. I believe it. So have you used some of these, like in your crossing with other, let's say, employees that are junior to you? Like, how do you take some of what you learned there and kind of push that forward?
I truly believe in paying it forward. I take every opportunity that's given to me, and sometimes not given to me, to maybe not formally, in some instances not formally mentor someone, but just having coffee with them. Maybe they have a question, or they moved into a new role, and they may not have the right mindset or not know what to focus on first. Having breakfast with them, maybe lunch or coffee, and just kind of sharing my experiences and give them maybe a different thought of how to approach a meeting or a project, or just dealing with their teammates, their new manager.
Interpersonal, sure. I've
had that experience, and it's gone well. People appreciate that, just taking that moment. Sometimes that's all it takes, right? That one sentence or that one word that of empathy that helps someone through a challenge, or maybe helps them see a situation maybe differently that didn't have the opportunity to see it that way before. So don't underestimate a kind word. Don't underestimate a small interaction. If you do it the right way, it brings value and people appreciate it.
Absolutely. Now we have a hybrid working schedule here at Copy and Art, but one of the things that I can say honestly, and not to get into like an uber contentious debate at the moment, but one of the challenges that I kind of see for young people who are like, team, let's just work from home, there's so much they're never gonna learn, because so much of career success and leadership is about interacting with humans, like, and what happens in the in-between the teams, in the in-between the conference room meetings. It's looking at someone. So much of communication is implicit and not explicit, and it's so much easier if you're over Teams or Zoom, somebody, how are you? Like, yeah, I'm good. Like, where if that person's in front of you, it's much easier to realize, like, no, you're not.
You're not good.
You're not good. And I see so much of our job as leaders is to coach and but first recognize that there's some sort of deficiency or some sort of a opportunity for learning, let's say. If we're all from home with pajama bottoms on, that's going to be really hard for these people who are just entering their career to understand and learn. So that's why I'm happy. Now, yes, work from home. Can we work from home? Yes, we can work from home. We do it here. It's not disparaging it. It's just saying, like, for growth, you have to be all in, right? And you have to be together, I think, to learn.
Absolutely. You see, it's. I think, just to reiterate what you're saying, they lose out on the unplanned opportunities for coaching, the unplanned, challenges that come up in the office throughout the day.
Right.
Whether maybe their skill set is demonstrated, or their communication skills are developed further because they helped out on a project or an issue that just popped up. So those opportunities are, I think, definitely lost when you're just working remote.
Yeah, that's why I give my anybody who'll listen to me that is younger and has an opportunity. I'm like, we used to call it press the flesh. It's like, let's go, be with people, learn. If you know your boss is going to be in with them. Sit there. Because, there's so many opportunities that you're going to have that, your other colleagues, and not that you want to be necessarily competitive, but you do have to fight for what you want in this life, and you have to set yourself apart if you want to stand out. And so maybe not doing what everybody else is doing might be a good, I like to say we zig where people zag. It's like, right. That's a really good kind of way. So as a segue, I have a question here. If you had one piece of advice for your 18-year-old self, since we're talking about young people, what would it be?
Great question. I would say be more confident. I'm 18 years old, right? In this scenario. Be more confident, trust your instincts, and everything will work out. I think when I was young, I was always very timid and sometimes afraid of doing things differently or maybe taking on a new challenge. I've learned with time that you have to be open to change. You have to be open to new challenges. If you don't make that decision, sometimes it's made for you.
That's true.
So why not make it on your own terms, right? It's an opportunity to learn, and it's an opportunity to grow.
So this is great. We're almost done, but I have one more question for you. No, 2 more questions. I lied. Sometimes I lie. What are your future aspirations? So we kind of talked about what you've done for 18 years. Talk about some advice you'd give your 18-year-old self. What is Rafael Peralta going to be doing in the future? What do you still dream about?
God, so many things. One, just to continue to evolve and learn in my role, my new role. Looking forward to the next 5 to 10 years of where this career is going to take me. I know the industry is evolving and changing every single moment, so it's exciting to kind of be at the front end of that. From a personal perspective, hopefully getting my soon-to-be high school freshman through high school and hopefully into college in the next 4.5 years or so.
Are you pushing healthcare? Because I know your family had a little bit of a.
Right now, I'm not. I just kind of see where things play out.
Okay.
I'm at. My perspective is, at that very young age, you should experiment and have different experiences.
Not with all things.
Not with all things. Academically, academically in sports.
Let's clarify.
Yeah.
We have some young people watching this.
Socially, I think, just be a sponge. Just take everything in, learn what you like, what you don't like, what you're good at, what you're not good at, and learn what others are good at as well.
Sure.
And it's an opportunity that, once you get to a certain age, you may not have.
Right.
So take advantage while you can, and learn as much as you can.
I agree.
So that's kind of my perspective. It's really focused on developing my career, continuing to support I&D initiatives at Bayer, and bringing forth my family.
Yes, I love it. So what's one question that I didn't know enough to ask?
I think it's good to highlight the difference between mentoring and having advocates, mentors and advocates.
Yeah, they are different.
They are different. We, as minorities and people of color, we may have and come across many mentors in our career path. It's important also to focus on developing advocates. What's the difference between a mentor and an advocate? A mentor is someone that will sit with you, have a coffee with you, have lunch with you. Kind of you can bring and share your challenges. They'll give you ideas and try to guide you with either their own experiences or maybe industry knowledge that they have. An advocate is someone that will pick up the phone when you're applying for a job. Pick up the phone and say, "Hey, that's my girl, that's my guy. Hey, I know them. I work with them."
You want them.
You want them on your team.
Right.
That's an advocate. Someone that'll put their credibility and their legacy on the line for you to open opportunities and create opportunities and open doors for you.
Right.
So once you have that, I think that's really when you see big jumps, leaps and leaps. Your career will expand leaps and bounds if you have that.
I agree. Well, that's one of the challenges. I feel like working from home, it's really hard to build the relationships necessary to have sincere advocates, right? Because if all we do is intersect via meetings and then we go on do our work, then the advocates are built in the in-between in many cases.
Absolutely.
And it's the walk in your office. It's the I went by your office and something sparked an idea. So I think in this interesting time that we're in, I'm still going to advocate for, to the extent that it's healthy and you can, being present at work. Just like you probably wouldn't Zoom, a happy hour, right?
Right.
You wouldn't say, "Hey, want to grab a beer? Cool. You teams me or I teams you. You're going to go to a bar." It's not the same, right?
Absolutely.
So it's like, to the extent that we can be in the same room and learn from one another, I think that's going to be the greatest opportunity for young people. And I like to tell some of my team that's younger than me, I'm like, what's the benefit of getting older? It's like, a little bit more. Like, you use that experience and learn from that experience.
Yeah, I was going to say some will listen and kind of internalize it, not take any action on it. Some will listen, internalize it, and actually see the value and act upon it. To your point, the person who you're going to call when you have that big new contract or that big new, that agency job that you need that clutch person to come in and PM it or be on the PM team.
You're right.
It's that person that's there at 7:30 in the morning. You see them at their desk or leave at 6:30 at night. That's kind of taking that extra effort. That's who you want on the team.
Yes. Right. And you don't want the people who are necessarily phoning it in. It really depends. Right. That's like, there's a reason for that expression.
Right.
So
You have a bench of players, right? Who are you
going to?
And you have a vision of where they all fit on the playground.
Right.
So that's your perception, right? But you're the decision maker.
Yeah. I think this is probably the first time I've ever had a Latino Hispanic leader with me at the table. It's been such a privilege to talk to you. Usually my last question is like, what didn't I know enough to ask? But since we have this commonality and this beautiful moment, what would you say to young Latinos out there just starting their career? What do you think the value is of you and I having this conversation today?
I think that the value is that it lets them see that there are Latinos in leadership positions, specifically now here in the digital marketing space and in the pharmaceutical space. There's career opportunities out there. We've come a long way. We've tried to pave the road and leave some good experiences behind. So not to be afraid to try. Even though you may not see us on a commercial or on maybe on a website when you go in and check out the company for a career, but once you go inside the doors, we're there.
Right.
And seek us out. And
we're not going anywhere.
We're not going, and we're there for you.
That's it. Thank you so much for joining me today.
Absolutely. Thank you for the opportunity. It's been a pleasure.
Yes. And that's Inside Copy and Art, the podcast.